Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about awkward and unclear structure, the first part of this lecture. The second part will be in a different lecture, but it's in the same PowerPoint presentation. So you have these notes there in Blackboard, and you can follow along with me if you'd like. We're going to be working from the PowerPoint, and I'm also going to be talking a little bit from chapter 26. So if you want to have your book available and the PowerPoint to follow along, this will be very similar, although shorter, than a regular class lecture. Okay, so first of all, you have to understand what a dangling or a misplaced modifier is, and we'll start with misplaced because they're a little easier. Misplaced modifier means that the word that's being modified doesn't have its modifying words right next to it, so it's misplaced. It makes sense. They're usually in the sentence, they're just far away from the word. So there's an example, if it's, on 548 at the beginning of chapter 26 that says, peering through the window, Jorge saw the man. Well, peering through the window is a descriptive phrase, and Jorge is the next word. So Jorge was the one peering through the window. Now, at the top of the next page, 549, they switch it around, and they say Jorge saw the man peering through the window. And by moving the descriptive phrase peering through the window, you get a whole new perspective on that sentence. Now Jorge is at home and someone is looking in his window. So the meaning of the sentence can change a lot depending on where the modifier is, or it could just be very unclear and hard to understand at all. So that's what a misplaced modifier is basically. On the PowerPoint, the second or third slide gives you a sentence, and it says, taped to the wall, Margaret read the note. You probably see where I'm going with this right now. You hear that, and you know, common sense tells you there's a note taped to the wall, and Margaret read it. However, the sentence says, and if you click, you get the full effect of the picture. It's a little child's drawing, and it's a person taped to a wall reading a note. Because, after all, the descriptive phrase taped to the wall describes the next noun, which is Margaret. So, you see where that mistake can come in. Okay, the next slide shows you some examples. The one that really, to me, stands out is the one about, what's his name? Raymond wore his one collared shirt to the job interview, which unfortunately was stained with yellow mustard. Well, job interview is the closest noun to which was stained with yellow mustard, and we know that a job interview can't be stained. We know that it's his shirt that's stained. However, that word or group of words rather being misplaced at the end of the sentence creates just confusion when you read it. You sort it out, but your reader shouldn't have to sort out your writing. You should give it to them in such an easy format that it flows right to them and they don't have to work to read your writing. Okay, we'll jump right in. This is on the slideshow, and it's also the first thing that page 549 talks about, which is single word modifiers. And those can actually be the worst kind because a one word modifier can jump around in the sentence and it can change the meaning of the sentence depending on where it is, and it could have 4 different meanings based on the placement of the modifier. So, looking at your book for a second, there's an example in the middle of page 549 that says, after his race at the track meet, Chad almost drank a gallon of water. And we know in our minds that it means he was thirsty and he drank water to the point that he drank almost a gallon. But notice what I did there. I changed it and I moved the word almost closer to gallon. In the book, the placement of almost puts it right before drank, which means he thought about drinking it and he almost did, but he didn't. And I know that seems like a very slight difference, but when I read that sentence, he almost drank a gallon of water tells me that he didn't drink, and he drank almost a gallon tells me he drank a lot of water. So it's a very different meaning. On the slideshow, the next slide has the word only on it, which is probably our worst. I think your book calls it the worst offender on page 550, because the word only can modify lots of different words. We know that adverbs, that's what only is, can modify a verb, it can modify an adverb, or it can modify an adjective. So when it moves around, it can cause us a problem. On the slides, the example I give you says, my sister only has 2 children. The word only is before has, which means she doesn't have anything else except children, which is probably not the case. The next example says, my sister has only 2 children. Now, only modifies 2, and it says she doesn't have any more than 2, and that's where we need it to be. So, I hope that makes sense to you. In your textbook at the bottom of page 550, there's a good example of the word only moving around in the sentence. They give you 4 different examples, and I'd really like for you to read over those 4 on your own and just see if they make sense to you about where they place it and what the meaning of the sentence is. So look over that list. I think it'll really help you. I've got a little cartoon in the slideshow that shows a stuffed bear driving a cop car. And it says, the caption says, the cops chased the bear in the squad car. Well, bear is closest to in the squad car, so that's the literal meaning of that. A lot of times when we see a visual picture of it, it will become funny to us like that. It's very humorous to think about a bear driving a car, stuffed or alive. Other times it'll just sound odd, or it won't make sense at all. So they're not all funny, unfortunately, but some of them are. Okay, so then I think that kind of wraps up what you need to know about misplaced modifiers. You can always consult your textbook if you want. Dangling modifiers are another thing altogether. A dangling modifier is one that doesn't modify the word. Let me rephrase that. There is not a word in the sentence that it modifies. So this starts on page 554 in your book, goes on to 555 very quickly. And the first example, watching a DVD about the theory of relativity, the concept became clear to Emily. Technically, to me, that is a misplaced modifier because Emily is in the sentence and she's the one who watched the video. And I would just rearrange the sentence so Emily came closer. Emily understood the concept of the theory of relativity. Or Emily understood the concept better, or something like that. Now, it really doesn't matter one way or another if you call it misplaced modifier or if you call it dangling modifier. Either way, it's still wrong, and you should have that word Emily next to the phrase that's being modified or doing the modifying. So, regardless of what you call it, you know how I am. I don't really care that you can name it. I just care that you know, hey, that's not describing the word concept, which is next, and that's a problem. So I need to rearrange my sentence. They show you some ways to fix that. At the bottom of the page, entering the classroom, the test was already being distributed. Okay, entering the classroom, who entered the classroom? Not the test, which is the next word. The test was already being distributed. Well, I'm guessing students entered the classroom, because if the test was being distributed, it was by a teacher. You know, you have to apply a lot of logic there. So entering the classroom, these students saw that the test was already being distributed. You have to add some words to make that make sense. At the bottom of the page, they actually put in one student's name, Marlene. So that's fine if that's how you want to fix it. So on the PowerPoint, I'm going to kind of jump back and forth. On the PowerPoint, that's actually method 1 of fixing a dangling modifier, is add a word. Add the word that's being modified that's obviously missing. And I give you lots of examples. Just look over those. I'm not going to talk through each one of those, but I think they'll be very evident once you read through them. Method 2 rather says rewrite the sentence. So the sentence I give you, the example says, without knowing his name, it was difficult to introduce him. What they did, or what I did rather, in that example is I made one part of it a dependent clause at the bottom. Because Maria did not know his name, it was difficult to introduce him. So not only did I add Maria in there, but I also created a dependent clause to go with an independent clause. There is no one right way to fix these, just as long as you get the modifying words next to the word that they are modifying. There's a little cartoon that comes next. It says, after doing my homework, my mother baked me a fresh batch of oatmeal cookies. Now, if we were in class, I would ask you which one is that, because the caption and my title for the slide clearly say Dangling Modifier. But actually, I would let you argue either way, dangling or misplaced. After doing my homework, my mother baked cookies. So my mother did my homework, then she baked cookies? No. After doing my homework, I ate cookies that my mother had freshly baked. I would have to put I right after that descriptive phrase. Or they rewrite it in the cartoon, after I completed my homework. So you've got a dependent clause that's fixed and it's fine. My mother baked me a fresh batch of cookies. Either one of those fixes would work just fine. You've got a newspaper article there in one of the other slides. Students cook and serve grandparents. There are two meanings to the word serve. It means put something on a plate and give it, or it could mean to serve someone, to give them something. And in this case, they didn't put their grandparents on a plate, they fed them. So should have been students cook and serve breakfast for grandparents or something like that. Students cook and serve breakfast, not the grandparents. So I don't know if I'd call that dangling or misplaced, honestly, but it's just wrong either way. So hopefully that kind of gives you an understanding. Refer to the PowerPoint, refer to chapter 26, and do that section of My Labs. I think it'll be pretty easy for you this week. Good luck.